All right. Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today for day 4 of Geo Week. We've got Luke Savonis over in Montgomery Planning talking all about Model Builder, model for business data, and quality control. I, for one, am super excited about this presentation. I used Model Builder a lot when I was in college working on my thesis on Asian elephant habitat, which is very different, very cool. But since then, I've barely used it. So I'm looking forward to seeing all that I can do. And with that, feel free to get started whenever you're ready, Luke.
Sure. Thank you, Tiffany, and thanks everyone for coming. Um, yeah, so recently I taught myself Model Builder to a much greater extent than I had learned it before. Um, and I think it's more accessible than it seems. And, I get that it seems maybe intimidating at first, but it can be a really useful tool. And I want to show you kind of what I did with business data. So yeah, I'm work on the research and strategic projects team of Montgomery Planning. So we're kind of like the data team. We collect information on demographics and business and housing and all sorts of different topics. Okay, so let's get started. Yeah, first of all, I work with a kind of a giant data set of businesses in Montgomery County called the QCEW, or the Quarterly Census for Employment and Wages, which is from the Federal Department of Labor. We have a lot of businesses in our big county, somewhere between 38,000 and 40,000. And so this in the middle is somewhat, not helpful map for looking at businesses because there are so many right on top of each other. But I just wanted to illustrate kind of how big this data set is and how useful ultimately. We have, a lot of businesses and homes, like you can see here. And, naturally in our, denser commercial areas like Silver Spring, there's a lot of businesses, but then, even, in areas like NIH here at the top right and Walter Reed, which is right across, and surrounding that, there, are a ton of businesses. And I'll talk more about the data set a little bit later, but just wanted to give you an overview. So yeah, my team, we create profiles of businesses and areas for master plans, and we do kind of background research, and then we can do analysis from the point of view of an industry. So how many workers in the life sciences industry and like in the in North Bethesda area. And I did a project looking at home-based businesses and Long Branch, what kind of businesses and how many employees. And so, yeah, really interesting stuff. Okay, on to Model Builder. Model Builder is a way to connect tools in order to kind of automate workflows. This is a little sample of my model. So you start with a variable and you connect it to a tool, and this is the output here. And then you do further kind of manipulations of the data set, like adding a field and then ultimately calculating coordinates in ArcGIS. So what I really like about Model Builder is like if you double click one of these tools, it opens just like the tools we use in ArcGIS Pro regularly. And so it looks very familiar that way. And that makes it easy to use. Then, as you can see here, this yellow box is kind of organizing my set of tools. And that's useful for kind of creating a big diagram of your whole model, and giving it a title here at the top, and and I'll show you my whole model at the end, but it's useful visually for sure. So yeah, continuing with the theme here, automating repetitive tasks is maybe the classic use of ModelBuilder. I'm not a pro, but I think that's largely what it's for, and you don't need any coding knowledge. And further, when you open one of the tools, you set your geodatabase, your save location, and you set all the settings, and then you just leave it. And then, when you run it this time and in the future, it'll run exactly the same way. So that really helps with keeping organized, and you can, if you're working with businesses for a previous year, you could set it for, or set the save the file name to kind of, say Long Branch Businesses 2022, and then the following year, Long Branch Businesses 2023. So very organized, which can be a useful thing if like me, you create a lot of layers with a lot of different names and then can't remember what they are later. So yeah, like I mentioned, I think it's user friendly. Once you kind of get past, I don't know, I guess getting used to it and initially, can be used in simple ways or very complicated ways. And then creating a diagram of your workflow it's a really nice visualization, and I'm going to use my model even just to explain the process of cleaning this business data in Montgomery County. And then, like I mentioned, you just can use it and reuse it and reuse it, and you can change it if you need to, but it's it's kind of like you set it and forget it. Okay, so some great features. Something called inline variable substitution is a fancy way of saying, well, in my case, you just create this little bit of code here, the %GDB %, and you create, or you in ArcPro, you designate what this, where this directs to, meaning you choose an existing geodatabase and say that this code directs to that geodatabase, and then you can just put this code in your output feature class, save location. So that's a useful tool. It simplifies things. Again, you can ultimately create a lot of files if that's the way you set things up. So I've gotten used to using the validate function, because if you run the model and it works not exactly how you intend, you have a bunch of files that aren't useful and you have to go back and delete them. So the validate function is useful. Preconditions are, as I write here, you prevent the model from progressing without successfully taking certain steps. And that can be useful, if you need to set up a new geodatabase before you take a bunch of steps with your layers, then you'll be sure to have that new geodatabase before the layers are created. Okay, so there are definitely limitations to ModelBuilder. For whatever reason, like some processes just don't work as well within ModelBuilder compared to you running it yourself. So I found that with geocoding, you can set it up exactly how it looks. You can set it up in the model, so that it looks the same as if I ran it myself, and it geocodes far fewer addresses properly on the map. So that's one thing to watch out for. I think ModelBuilder doesn't do particularly well with copying symbology. That's something you still need to set up manually. That's from some research that I did to put this presentation together. So I'm not intimately familiar, but I think that would be a real limitation. And then if you're familiar with coding and Python, then in some cases that would be faster and better. Okay, on to the business data. As I mentioned, this is a gigantic federal database, and they send us the portion that are the businesses in Montgomery County. It's one of the best sources of employment data, and 95% of businesses are required to provide this information. And these are, you can see some of the columns that are provided in the data set, but really the data set is like 40 columns long, so there's a lot of information. This is, these are certainly the columns that we use most frequently. So the data set certainly comes with some challenges. This is an example of how some of the data comes in. There's no address information here. We know a business name, but we don't know really where they are. And further, sometimes this Potomac information is wrong or the zip code is wrong. So before the model, I was just going onto Google and researching where Willis of Maryland is in the county and changing it manually, and doing that for 1,500 to 2,000 businesses. Now, now we noticed that for whatever reason, it is the same businesses year after year that come in as problems, and we don't understand quite why that is, but something about the collection process or people resubmitting the same paperwork year after year. So our thought was, since I've done the work to manually find addresses for a lot of the problem businesses, and because they repeat year after year, we tried to join the what's called the match address, kind of the address that we decided on in previous years, and based on the unique ID, and this is very, very important here. But because this is a unique code for one business, then you can match the 2023 match address to the 2024 version that came in with errors. So that's kind of the basis of the manipulations of the business data. Then we calculate geometry, so we put coordinates on the map, and then I don't have to bother doing the research to find a new match address for the 2024 information. I hope that's all clear. So mixing the QCEW cleaning and the model builder now. So to start, I'm creating a new geodatabase, and this here is a precondition when it's, or sorry, to back up, these connector arrows show just a normal sort of, you work this tool and the output is this, and then you put this into the next tool. But with a precondition, this requires that this all run properly, all of this process up here, before you can proceed. So that helps to keep layers organized. So as I described, I take the old QCEW file with the properly matched addresses. Always make a copy just in case, and add columns, and then calculate coordinates. And I was kind of mentioning before, another feature of ModelBuilder that I like is the ability to kind of add these longer kind of descriptions of what you're doing. And I hope that, if I'm not at this job in 5 years, that someone can still kind of figure out what the steps are and why. Okay, so this is kind of prepping the old QCEW file, the 2023 points that I'm going to match to the 2024 businesses. And so when that's ready, I join those businesses' addresses to the more recent year's QCEW, and yeah, this is starting to get into technical stuff, but basically there'll be a lot of businesses that still don't have proper addresses, but I found, I think, 28,000 or something that came from previous years. So there's two different sets then there's businesses that have coordinates from the previous year, and then there's businesses that still need to geocode. More kind of in the weeds cleaning of this data set is that there are these staffing services like Insperity or Kelly that do a lot of the paperwork and administration for businesses, and for whatever reason they submit to us a lot of awful records. We get businesses that are in North Carolina and Texas and ones that don't have addresses. So, the number was small enough that we decided to just take them out. It was a lot of work to try to figure out where some phantom business was, and it wasn't adding much to the data set ultimately. So yeah, as I mentioned, some processes don't run as well in ModelBuilder, and that's why that is beyond my pay grade, but still I set up the visualization so that if someone else is doing this work, then they can hopefully understand the processes. But so with the outputs of these steps here, this step where I'm prepping the table for geocoding, I would insert that into the file or into the tool here, and get a better geocode output than if I were to run the tool in ModelBuilder. So similarly, when the layers are ready from the cleaning above, then I put in the Montgomery County boundary, and I take out any businesses that are outside of the Montgomery County boundary. Then beyond that, there's still the called rematching addresses work to do, which is where I have those awful records like these that don't have address information. There are still those records that I have to go and do the research online to figure out where those businesses really are. But the advantage of ModelBuilder for me has been that that work is reduced by, I think, roughly 1,200 businesses. So it's a big deal. Okay, finally, where I had business locations from coordinates from previous years, and then I need to merge that with the businesses that I manually found the addresses for. and that's when once again, like that's the step that happens here. And once again, I've set up the settings so that it should just run properly. It should have all the right columns, and be just like previous years. So yeah, that's my model. I guess I talked about this. But yeah, so I do recommend ModelBuilder. I could teach myself a lot of the steps here, and I do have some great teammates who can help out. But it's doable, and I know it looks like a lot of work, and it is, but it is doable. So yeah, with this final step, I just kind of re-emphasizing like having settings set up the exact same way, so you don't have to repeat tools and processes, and that the data sets come out the same way year after year. That's like in this merge. If you're familiar with field mapping, that's kind of setting up the data sets so that the right columns match up with the right columns in the other data set. And it can be tricky. It can take some real work. But this tool here is just set up so that it runs once properly. That's what I have. Please feel free to send any questions.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Luke.
Thank you.
Keegan, you have a question?
Yeah. Well, question and comment, Luke. Perfect example of ModelBuilder. You mentioned, I don't think you told me how many I think businesses you had to manually update. That's a lot. And Kim, I don't know how long you were doing that for, but that's a perfect use of your time. I'm curious, how much time do you save now? And my other question is, like, was there any point in making this model you're like, I don't know if this is worth the squeeze? Did you run into any roadblocks? So time saved, and what major roadblocks did you run into?
Yeah, those are good questions. I save a lot of time, and I think when I was manually rematching all of the addresses, it was 2 to 3 weeks of kind of intensively focusing on only this. So I now going from 1,500 businesses where I manually rematched to maybe 300. I think if I worked intensively, it could be under a week. So pretty significant time savings.
Wow.
So for that reason, I never doubted that this would be a useful thing to do.
Definitely.
Yeah, as far as roadblocks, yeah, there's something of a learning curve. Not a crazy one, but things like, let me go back to my tool here. Things like testing the geocoding inside of ModelBuilder versus outside of ModelBuilder. That was a learning moment for me. I can't explain why it works better outside of ModelBuilder, but it does. So that that takes some testing, and I'd imagine there will be other kind of quirky things to get used to. Yeah,
depending on your use case, if that makes
right.
sense. Cool. Thanks, Keegan. Jing has a question too. Jing, if you'd like to unmute.
Yeah. Thank you, Luke. Great presentation. I do see there's a lot of benefit of this ModelBuilder, and I think you make a really good point about it can help us to set a lot of things up, because about geoprocessing, there's just a lot of steps, and a lot of time, even for myself, I will forget what I did last time. So this is a good way for us to track our workflow and everything. And I also think this is good for collaboration. So can you talk a little bit more about how over the best approach to save the model builder so that it's easier for us to reuse and share that with our colleague to work together on some of the projects?
So the best ways to save the model and to save outputs from the model, is that right?
Yeah, and for collaboration purpose, like then you can share with
Yeah.
your colleague and they can also make changes to that, or they can make some correction.
Yeah. So like any ArcPro project, only one person can work in it at a time. There is an ArcGIS online version. This is like a little snippet here. And I haven't used that very much, but I did mean to highlight that in my presentation. So I imagine you'd have to, one person would have to get out of the file and another person would have to get in, to make edits. As far as saving the information, I really like the keeping layers organized as outputs, when they're outputs from ModelBuilder, and that's kind of a real advantage of this, creating a geodatabase function. So I can just change the name of the geodatabase to let's say businesses from model in 2022, and then the next year's geodatabase can be businesses and model from 2023. So it's just a very organized setup, and you can just be confident that the layers are done well. They're named in a similar way to that the geodatabase names I was describing. So does that answer your question?
Yeah, so that's more like the outcome of this model, right? Like generate the layers and then have a geodatabase location to save all the output layers, right? And how about the model itself?
Yeah, so it's saved in the toolbox.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so you can just go there, in your catalog and you right click it and click edit. And then that opens the view.
I see.
And
So
that's tied to the pro project.
Okay.
Right, Luke?
Right, correct.
So then whoever has the pro project can open the toolbox and access the model.
Right.
Okay, that makes sense. All right, thank you.
I have a quick offshoot question based on that in terms of like collaboration and making the model like easier to use from somebody who might want to like pick it up right away. Luke, I'm seeing that in your model with like the blue bubbles, you have a P next to it. If I'm remembering correctly, I think that's a parameter, right? And then does that allow somebody to open the tool as if it's a geoprocessing tool and like drag and draw and like input the input layers there? If that
yes
rings
to
a
the
bell?
input layers.
Okay.
Yes, sorry, I'm not as clear on the purpose of a parameter. In this case, it's they're blue not because they're a parameter, but because they're the starting input. But I believe a parameter makes it easier to change the input or something like that.
So like specifying what's that old file or what's this year's new file.
Yeah, it's something like that. Sorry, I'm not
No worries. Yeah, I think that the P just reminded me because I remember setting that up. And so Jing, I'm gonna put in the chat some documentation about it and this quick screenshot because when you mentioned, collaboration and making the model easy to use, it makes me think of something like this where it like, and Luke, you can look in the chat and let me know if this is something that applies to your model, or if you haven't done this since you're the one running it. But Jing, you can see how it looks like a geoprocessing tool. The behind the scenes is the model, but it looks like a geoprocessing tool where like those parameters you set, you or whoever is running the tool can pull in those input layers from a geodatabase.
Okay, so it's like whoever have the access to the ArcGIS per project can open this in the toolbox and then make changes to the parameters.
And then
Okay.
I might be wrong, and if Colin's on the call, he might be able to. Oh,
Yeah,
he
I
is.
was wondering about that. Yeah.
Because I think you can also publish the tool to either Portal or ArcGIS Online for people to be able to run the tool in the cloud. And okay,
Would that
Keegan's
take
thumbing up,
any
but
credits?
Colin, can you speak to that?
Yeah, no credits are required. This is
Great.
something that can be published by looking at your analysis history. So you'll just right click on that tool run and say publish as a web tool. You do have to publish it to the portal. There are a lot
Ah,
of wonky things with publishing Model Builder
okay.
because our portal is not at the same version as our Arc Pro. There's always like that mismatch. So you'll run into uh parameter issues within very specific geoprocessing tools. Like enforced domains is not something in our portal. Well, the last time I ran it, I think we did just upgrade portal, but
Okay.
there are some things that don't match perfectly. So if you're trying to publish a tool in portal, like try your best in Model Builder. If not, you might have to think about what geoprocessing will work and won't work. Like instead of a
Okay.
merge, you can like kind of like rip it apart and use a join instead. So like there's a lot of like little wonky
Gotcha.
things in there. Yeah.
Yeah.
See,
And
it's
Colin,
good
can
to
you
know.
briefly describe a parameter and the purpose?
Yeah, so those blue circles there that you see in this diagram, those are the input parameters. So when you are using a geoprocessing tool in ArcGIS Pro, you'll have those like a buffer. An input parameter would be like, what is the input feature class? And then another input parameter is what's the unit, like what is the distance you want to do a buffer. So those are input parameters. So
Mm.
in here, it looks like we have create a folder. So the input parameter is probably going to be the name of that new folder that you create. The next input parameter is this copy feature tool. So what is the input feature class that you want to copy? And then the last one is going into export tables. So you're making a copy of this table. So that last input parameter is going to be that initial table. So,
Awesome. Thank you,
well,
Colin. Yeah, Colin has he's done this before with publishing models, and thank you for outlining some of those limitations. And I'm sure there's other considerations for like how one would actually run the tool. So Jing, if you have additional questions, feel free to reach out and we can work together with Colin
Sounds good.
to figure
Thank
that
yeah,
you.
out. Yeah,
Thank you,
thank you.
Colin.
thanks, Colin. Thanks, Jing.
Okay.
Jesus, do you have a question? If you want to unmute.
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yep.
Oh, okay. Yeah, thanks, Luke. I don't know if this is a Luke question or a Colin question, but is there like a maximum amount of data that either, I guess, the model builder or our laptops can handle? I'm wondering, I mean, have you ever run across like the program just crashing on you because you've just put in too many, I don't know what, like too many of these like orders together, or the data set gets too big and it's just impossible to go
I,
forward?
I haven't.
I'll take a quick stab at that. I think for any of the data sets, so you might be thinking about parcels, maybe. You're probably good. I've had a lot of failures in the last couple of weeks for school projects for doing raster stuff, and that's all about the
Mm,
temporary space on your drive. So if it's like if there's a limiting factor for like the geoprocess, it's probably has something to do with the available memory. So if you run into that, reach out to the ISGIS team.
Okay.
But you should be good.
Yeah. One of the other things that's really occurred to me lately is that I know that we started using older GIS products, and we're also using the 32-bit drivers, some of the 32-bit data drivers. It would be really good if we went to the 64-bit data drivers, because that makes more memory available. If you're still using a 32-bit driver, you will not be able to address, even if we stuck more memory on your machine, you would not be able to address it. So I think that's one thing that's become more apparent to me, but I'm not exactly sure, who's got what drivers on their workstations, but I'll try to help people with that.
Great, thanks.
Awesome. Thank you.
Gabe, did you have a question?
Yeah, I was going to ask that. Or maybe a comment. I think, Gabe, you
Gabe, you're muted.
unmuted, but I can't hear you. Muted now. I see you looking over there. Is he
Gabe, you're on
across
mute.
the room?
He says it's all right. We can move
Oh,
forward.
okay. All right. Any last questions? And then James put in the chat, I've done parameters before. It allows flexibility for input instead of hard coding the source. Okay, that makes sense. So if your input is changing year to year, or you're refining those
Right.
files, you don't have to like change the input. You can specify the input. So, right?
Right.
Awesome.
Thank you, everyone, for coming.
Thank you, Luke.
Thank
This
you
was
so
really good.
much. Agreed. Very eye-opening. Thank you for sharing the wisdom of, the issues you ran into and sort of the thoughtfulness that went to addressing some of those issues and making it a better model for future years to come. And with that, I will do a plug for our second session of the day. We've got Smart Trails and the Volunteer Trail Ranger program with Annalie over with Montgomery Parks, and that starts at 11. So tune in. All right. Thank you so much, everyone. Thank you, Luke, for the awesome presentation. And Annalie's there raising her hand, who will be presenting at that session. Thanks. Bye, everyone.